Hey, welcome to the Existential Stoic podcast. This is a quick fix. Today we're going to talk about habit creation. I'm Danny. I'm here with my buddy Randy.
Hey, Danny.
Hey, Randy. And so for these quick fixes, so each week, midweek, we'll come with a short episode. It's less than 10 minutes. The goal is to give you guys some tips focused on one self-help topic. Today we're going to talk about habit creation. But first, why would we want to create habits?
Yeah, I think creating habits is one of the best possible things you can do. I think it was Aristotle or somebody who said that we are the sum of our
He thought
habits.
so.
Yeah, right. So it makes sense to have good habits. If we're the sum of our habits, it would make sense to have good habits. But learning how to create habits and knowing how to, that's a helpful thing.
That makes sense. Yeah, right. If habits are like define who we are, right? We also need to then we make ourselves through our habits effectively, right? So they're really important. All right. So this week then we each came up with 3 tips, right, for habit creation. So since it's my week, I will start since we always do that.
Mhm.
So my first one is know what you're working towards. And I think this is important because when I think of habit creation, I think of like ideal, or I think of like the life that I want. And in order to create the right habits and cultivate the right habits, you need to actually have a sense of what you're working towards. If you don't, you'll waste time, I think, on habits or trying to figure out that rather than actually developing the habits that you want, the character you want effectively.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good thing because you need to know what goal you're working towards in order to know what action you're going to need to do on a regular basis to achieve that goal. Yeah, but
It helps.
yeah, but so many people just pull habits out of a hat, and they'll just say, "Oh, I want to do this one," and then they implement that habit, and it's not what they want.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, right? Not just selecting arbitrary habits, which I think a lot of people do. They see other people, they hear about these things, and they think, "Oh, that would be really great," but it's like, well, to what end? Because it's a character trait, so it should be towards something. It's not just arbitrary. Yeah.
Bingo. So
Yeah.
starting with the end, that's a good one. My first one, I have make it easy. So we've talked about this before. There was some book by Stephen Guys. I can't remember the title of it, but he talks about, creating little easy habits. Instead of being like, I'm going to go to the gym for 4 hours a day, start with, I'm going to do a push-up every day. And that way it's much easier to do and it'll snowball on itself. You'll get the good feeling from having accomplished it, and you can start benefiting from that routine before you have to before you just wear yourself out trying to do something too difficult.
I mean, I love that one. I wasn't sure exactly where you're going with that when you first mentioned it, but I love that one because it's so important. Like I think so many of us we get derailed from incorporating important practices into our life because we make them too hard at the outset. And it's discouraging as hell. It is. It sucks. If you start working out, you're like, I want a 6-pack in a month. Dude, it's not going to happen. It's impossible. So get rid of that dream. I mean, you probably don't have enough time to
Mm-hmm.
spend every moment at the
Well,
gym.
there's also a couple other things that are important to note about that. So there's this book called The Compound Effect where he talks about it, where just these teeny little things that we do on a regular basis, they compound upon each other when we give them long enough time. And Jim Rohn, he talks about it. He says that an apple a day keeps a doctor away. Everybody knows that. It's easy to do, but it's also easy not to do. So we make these habits easy, but then we actually need to do them.
Yeah, and that is crucial, right? You actually still have to do the thing. And that's nice. That works very well into my second one, which is practice consistency. I think, we need to be consistent in practicing and implementing our habits. And I think it's important to remember that, like a habit in habit formation, you do not have it the second you try. That is not what a habit is,
You do
right?
not
A
have it
habit
the second you try.
yeah, the second you try, right? You don't just have the habit immediately. It takes practice. It takes time. Aristotle mentioned this, right? Very in the ancient Greek philosophy, right? Of virtue ethics. He said, look, you have to practice these things all the time, and you just keep doing it in order to sort of make that part of your life, make it a part of who you are. And I think that's crucial, right? And
Absolutely.
consistent practice, right? Consistent over time too is important. Yeah.
And you say
Sorry.
consistency. My second one is actually do it every day. So I'm a
There you
big
go.
fan. Yeah, I know, right? So sometimes our things coincide, but I actually say do it every day. And the reason I do this is because I like to play this mind game of like the ideal life with myself. So everybody thinks like, oh, if I'm a millionaire, then I can do whatever the heck I want. But then you ask them what they do, and they'd be like, well, I travel the world. And it's like, okay, but you still have 365 days a year and 24 hours of each of those days to figure out what the heck to do. So I always try and figure out like what would my ideal day be. and then implement that every day. And part of that is developing these habits that'll build the character of the person that I want. So doing it every day. And one thing that helps me to do it every day is by marking it down on the calendar. If I do it, big X. If I don't do it, no X there. And you just try and keep the chain of X's going like as long as possible. Like I
And
know,
that's like, yeah, go
I know
ahead.
just sometimes you don't even need to do it. Like the Kindle that I use, there's this insights thing which tells you how many days in a
Yeah.
row you've been reading. And like no matter what I'm doing, I always try and make sure I'm reading because I don't want to break that chain, you know?
Well, that's the nice thing about any kind of record keeping like that is always beneficial, right? Because we don't want to lose our streak. We don't want to mess it up. And it becomes part of your day. And I think that's what people don't realize too, is that when you practice these things and you do it every day, it just gets easier and easier and easier with time because it starts to become a part of your life. I really like that one too, though, because it's about taking advantage of your life now, not waiting for some imagined time in the future when you can do what you want, but just doing it, starting to live that life now and putting and implementing what you need to make it happen. I
Well, you
like that.
hear you
Yeah.
hear all these stories about these CEOs who make hundreds of millions of billions of dollars. They exit their company and then they're living the life of their dreams and they're bored as a mofo a couple days later
Yeah.
because they're not in the middle of something. So like you need to really build the life that you want now. And then when you get to that $1 million or whatever you think your goal is, then you'll have a sustainable life that you can continue living.
Yeah, I like that. And you go from there, right? You move forward from that point. That's good. All right, my last one is and I think this is crucial, it's time. I think you have to understand that character development is about developing, I mean, habit formation is about developing character, it's about developing dispositions, character traits. This takes time. And I think the reason why I mentioned this is that, we often think that like I've done something first. You always see like, oh, the 2-week plan or the 21-day plan or whatever. And it's like, that is not long enough. You need to do this stuff for a while. And the difficult thing is that it's easy to lose also if you stop. And I think you need to keep this in mind. So if I do something, if I exercise, say, for a year and I stick to it, it's become part of my day, part of my routine. That's probably long enough where it's become a character trait, right? Something that's part of my everyday. But you can lose it too. So you have to keep time in mind. I think the time to really get that back, to develop it, to become part of who you are. Yeah.
Yeah. Everybody wants stuff done now, and unfortunately, time takes
Yeah.
longer than now. Like you can't. And I think like people, um, they always tout the 21 day. It takes like 21 days to develop a habit, and it's like yes, but a habit is something that you want to have for your life. So like, why should you care that it takes 21 days? I think Steve Martin does a better job where he talks about he knew it would take 40 years to learn the banjo, so he just figured he'd keep on playing, and now he's an
Yeah.
amazing banjo player.
Well, and that long timeline, I think it's in a sense it's easier to motivate yourself through that long timeline because you understand a more realistic progression rather than these expectations of excellence within 21 days. You realize that it'll take a long time. I mean, Aristotle, most of these philosophers realize that this was being virtuous was like ideal, right? It's something you work on your whole life, not
Yeah.
just for 10 days or 21 days. Yeah.
Like maybe if you're looking at it like 21 days is going to be difficult to accomplish, maybe you're barking up the wrong tree. Maybe that's the wrong habit for you. Like
Yeah.
that's worth considering.
Yeah, it is, right? If that's your big accomplishment, maybe it's not enough.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
I like that.
So my last one is habit stacking, and I learned this from a book. I don't remember which one, but they talk about if you want to incorporate a new habit, try attaching it to some habits you already have. So like me personally, I kind of bookend my day. I know in the morning and at night I can do stuff for personal growth, and I do it regularly. So anytime I want to incorporate a new habit, I know that if I put it at those times, I'll be much more likely to do it because I'm already there, I'm already doing something, and then that makes sure it gets done every day. So kind of attaching a new habit to a previous habit you have.
I like that too. So it's not only trying to incorporate the new habit, but it's actually scheduling it smartly with others that are related so that you're more likely just to do it all the time. That
Mm-hmm.
makes sense. I like that. It's also, I mean, it's also just effective utilization of your day, right? That, I'm working on this now. I need to focus on this. It really highlights that idea of focus to actually be a part or be present for what you're doing. So you really get the benefit out of it. I like
Yeah.
that a lot.
Yeah. And a lot of people probably do it unconsciously. Like if they want to start going to the gym, they stack it with when they're going to work. So they'll either do it at the beginning or the end of work, because going to work is a habit. Everybody has the habit. 5 days a week, we're going to work. But you can add it to the beginning or the end, and then it becomes that much easier as opposed to trying to fit it in some other time.
Yeah, you're still going to somewhere, right? So you just add it to that practice. I like that. Nice.
Mhm.
All right. So that's our tips for creating habit creation. Guys, we'll be back with another full-length episode this week. Please check us out on YouTube, or check us out on the podcast. Please click notifications, subscribe, and share. It helps us out a lot. And we'll see you next week. All right, later, Andy.
Later, Danny.